Literally the sun came out. The sun came out when I had a bite of this cookie. That's how good it is in Newfoundland, of all places. Hey everyone, my name is Olivia. For those of you who don't know me, I am Barry's daughter and I work here at Rock Recipes with the rest of the family. And today I am so excited to be welcoming you to Baccalieu Cottage. So myself, my partner Vincent, and both of my parents actually just purchased this beautiful old Newfoundland salt box home. It's over 160 years old and it is located in Ochre Pit Cove, Newfoundland. Just nestled right into Conception Bay, not too far from actually where both of my parents grew up and where my grandparents still live. So it feels very special. It feels very close to home to be here. It's a beautiful place and we are going to be sharing recipes here with you. We're going to be creating more videos and taking you along for some adventures around the cove and along the way. So I'm very happy and excited to be welcoming you here today, and I hope you will stick around for the ride. So this is our very first video here at Baccalieu Cottage, and we are making one of our most popular recipes at Christmas and Thanksgiving every year without a doubt, our Pecan Pie Bars. These are so delicious. They've got a beautiful buttery shortbread crust, kind of this gooey caramelly butter tart filling, and then of course that beautiful layer of toasty pecans right on the top. It's crunchy and gooey and delicious. I love pecan pie. I don't know why we limit ourselves to it only once a year, either at Thanksgiving or Christmas. But I love these because they're such an easy way to enjoy pecan pie without having to go through all the motions and the fuss of actually making a pie from scratch. So here in this bowl, I've got 1 3/4 of a cup of flour. And to that, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of sugar. Just give it a quick whisk to combine. And then to that, I'm going to add 3/4 cup of very cold butter. And what I've done is cut this into cubes because it's going to make it a lot easier to work it into the flour and create that nice buttery shortbread base. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this in. Just kind of toss to coat the cubes. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and start squeezing those little cubes of butter and rubbing them into the flour mixture. This is kind of like an old school way of making a shortbread dough or a pie dough. If you have a food processor at home, you can easily just pop this mixture right in there, give it a blitz for a few seconds, and you'll be done. I kind of like doing it by hand when the recipe is so simple. So if you're doing this by hand, it may take you just a couple of minutes. What you kind of want to see is the butter being incorporated into the flour, and you kind of want it to look like a chunky sand. You're going to see the color of the mixture get a little bit more golden and yellow from the butter. That's how you know that it's getting incorporated nicely. When you squeeze it, you should be able to start seeing it kind of come together into a dough. So now that the base is finished, you kind of want it to look like this crumbly, sandy texture. Totally fine if you have a couple of pieces left that are a little bit larger. I'm going to go ahead and grab this prepared 9 by 13 inch pan. I've greased it and I've also lined it with parchment paper, and what that's going to do is make it very easy to lift these up out of the pan once they're actually baked. Just going to dump the mixture right in like this. We're going to press this crumbly mixture down to create that nice cookie crust. You want to make sure it's nice and firmly packed into the tray because otherwise it kind of gets too crumbly on the bottom and it can't support that kind of gooey middle. Beautiful. So now that we have our cookie crust pressed into the bottom of the pan, I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the oven for about 20 minutes, only until the edges of it kind of turn golden brown. We're going to finish the bake when we throw the filling and nuts on top of it. But for now, a little pre-bake. So I've got the shortbread base in the oven at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. If you are not using an aluminum pan, if you are using glass bakeware, bring that temperature on the oven down to about 325 degrees. It's going to help a lot with the heat distribution and just making sure you don't burn your cookies. In the meantime, while that's baking, I'm going to go ahead and start in on this filling. Here to start, I have 2/3 of a cup of tightly packed dark brown sugar. I like using dark brown sugar and also dark corn syrup because it's going to give you kind of a richer, more caramelly flavor in that filling. So here we go. 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar. To that, I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup plus 1 tablespoon of flour. Basically, all this is going to do is act as a thickening agent. Now that our flour is mixed in well and I've kind of gotten rid of any clumps of brown sugar that's left, to that I'm going to go ahead and add 4 eggs. And a teaspoon of vanilla. I always eyeball vanilla and I always add more than the recipe calls for because I just love it. A little pinch of salt. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add our dark corn syrup. Again, that nice dark brown flavor is what you're looking for. How much is this? How much am I putting in here? This is 1.5 cups. 1.5 cups of dark brown corn syrup. Okay, great. Now that I kind of have all of the wet ingredients in here, I'm just gonna go ahead and start mixing this up. You could use an electric hand mixer for this, or you could use a stand mixer, whichever you prefer. Again, I just kind of like doing things by hand. So I'm actually going to go ahead and let this mixture sit while my base finishes up, and then right before I'm going to stir the pecans in. By letting this sit for a couple of minutes, you're just giving everything the opportunity to soften up, let that flour dissolve, and thicken the mixture. So we'll give it a stir every couple of minutes just while we're waiting. But yeah, nice and easy. Okay, great. So now that I have my shortbread base out of the oven, I'm gonna go ahead and just give my filling one more stir. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 cups of roughly chopped pecans. You want these to be untoasted because they're going to get nice and toasty in the actual oven. Otherwise they're gonna get too brown if you double toast. I'm just going to stir to combine. It already smells so good in here. I'm going to go ahead and add that right on top of this hot cookie base. Just like that. And then you just kind of want to make sure your nuts are distributed evenly. And what's nice about this is that the nuts kind of float to the top and they give you kind of this beautiful, beautiful looking bar. Now this is ready to go back in the oven. I believe the recipe on this one says about 40 to 50 minutes. I know for a fact my oven runs hot, so I'm actually going to check it after about 30-35 minutes. It all depends on your oven. I suggest you get to know it well. It will really help you a lot when you are baking and kind of just doing anything. So we're going to pop these in, check them again in about 30-35 minutes. Are you excited? Our pecan pie bars are out of the oven and I have let these cool completely. Do yourself a favor, let them cool completely. I know it's tempting to pull them right out of the tray, but especially with these bars in their gooey middle, you really need them to set before you can cut into them, or else you're gonna be stuck with a gooey mess. Not so fun. If you need to, you can run a knife along the edge of the pan just to kind of break through any crystallized sugar. So what we're going to do now is actually lift this whole thing up out of the pan. Beautiful, there we go. Oh, little caramelly bit. I'm going to show you I have sugar in my teeth. So I'm going to show you a trick on how to cut these bars neatly and clean, because sometimes if you just smash right into them, they will create kind of a gooey mess and you'll have less of a square and more of a blob. Not that a blob isn't delicious, it'll be a delicious blob, but we like squares. I'm going to take a serrated knife, a bread knife, and I'm going to kind of go horizontally first, and I'm going to cut one row off of it. I'm going to start by kind of sawing through the top layer of nuts and then pressing down to take the whole column off. Let me show you. Press your knife down and take the whole thing off. These are very rich, so you may want to cut your bars a little smaller than you usually would. Oh, but let me show you this cross section. You want a good cross section? Oh, look how beautiful that is. So you can see that nice kind of solid shortbread base, that gooey middle, and then all of those crunchy nuts right on top. And I pulled this out after 35 minutes. Like I said, I really didn't need the full 50 or even 40 on this batch. Okay, so once you cut your rows off, what you can do is then just slice each row into nice little squares using that same motion. Whoops, I just broke one. So let's try a taste test of these beautiful pecan pie bars, one of my favorites. Guys, I don't know what to tell you. That's just so good. You need to make these at home. They're so easy. They're so rich. They're so delicious. I was gonna bring these over to my neighbor, but now I'm thinking I should save them for myself and keep them in the freezer and sneak them when I want treats. Thank you so much for joining me today in our very first recipe video at Baccalieu Cottage. There is plenty more to come. I hope you will follow along for our holiday series. We'll have lots of videos from now until Christmas Eve, and we are so excited to share those with you. If you make this pecan pie bar recipe at home, we would love to see your pictures and posts. Please tag us. And again, if you want the recipe, you can find it, of course, on rockrecipes.com. This was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I hope it encourages you to eat pecan pie more often. Not just at Christmas, not just at Thanksgiving, but any time of the year, anytime you fancy. You know, this is self-care. This is self-care. That's what we'll tell ourselves, I think.